it is time to start exploring the last possible kind of channel, the last possible type of channel that we can use, which is the presence channel. And for that, probably the best example is a chat room. So well, we are going to implement during this section and the following what? A chat session, a chat room for the authenticated users of our project, and additionally we are going to allow private interactions between users to explore some kind of private channels as well. So for that we need to first start with the components, the visual components of our chat rooms. So for that we need to start as usual with a root in our web.php file. But this time this root is not going to use only or not going to return only a view. This is going to return the result from an action into a controller, because in fact this chat room is going to have several possible actions as we are going to see during this section. So let's just start with the first one, which is an action in the controller that is going to show the view. Let's just start with a get root, which is going to be executed with chat, and this is going to be in the chat controller, and the action is going to be show chat. So this is going to be chat.show. We need to create this controller. So let's go to our controllers in app HTTP controllers, and there we can use as a base the home controller. So let's go to duplicate this, call this chat controller. The same here. So as I said, we need to use this chat for authenticated users. So we have to protect our roots with the auth middleware in order to require an existing session from an existing user before to access any action of this controller. This is mandatory because we need to be able to identify the user to determine who sends the message and in some cases who sends the events. So we need to show the chat. So we have this action, and this is going to return just a view in the chat folder with the name of show. So once it is done, we need to create that view. So let's go to resources views, and we can duplicate, for example, the game folder, but now the name is chat. So inside chat, we have the show view. We are going to have some styles, but we need to remove the other ones, of course, and the same, in fact, for the scripts. So let's go to remove all of them, and let's start with the main component. So we have, this is a chat, and we have the body. So let's start with the body, but first we need to take the full size of the container. So we are going to use container fluid, and here we are not going to use a column of 8 but a column of 12. If we go to our browser to this specific location, you can see after login how we are using much more the space that we have. So in the chat we are going to have in the body, of course, two different columns. The first one is going to have the set of messages and similars, and the second one is going to have the set of users. So let's just start with the first one, which is going to be, for example, for 10, and the second one is going to be for the remaining space, which should be 2. So to be organized, we should be putting all of these columns inside a row, and additionally this row is going to have a padding of 2 just to add some space. So we have padding 2, and as I said, we need to put these columns inside. So let's put it there. And in this column, the first column on the left, we are going to have one row with the list of messages and another row with the component where the user can input the message and click on send. So let's start with the messages component. So we need a new row with a full size column there, and we are going to have an unordered list inside with a list of messages. For example, we have some messages between test1 and test2. Now we are going to add some styles to this column. So we are going to say that it is going to have borders. We are going to round that borders with rounded large, and we are going to add some padding for this. Then in the unordered list, we are going to have several items. First, we need an ID to reference this, which is going to be messages. Then we have a class for the styles. So we don't need to show the styles of the list. So we are going to use list on styled. And additionally, we're going to use overflow auto. And as we don't want to increase the height of the list of messages after we have a lot of them, we need to establish a fixed style or a fixed height for this. So let's use a style tag here, and this is going to be equal to the height, and we are going to use at least the 40% of the current height of the viewport. Then, once we have this, we are going to add the input to send the message. So let's go to add a form. Inside the form, we are going to have a row. Let's add some padding on the left and the right for this element. And inside this, we are going to have a column of 10 for the message. Inside, we are going to have an input, which is type text. We need an ID to reference this, which is going to be message. And we are going to add the styles, which is going to be form control. Then in the other column, we are going to have a div size of 2, and there we are going to have a button with an ID of send. The text is going to be sent as well. We have a type, which is going to be submit to send the form. After pressing or even pressing enter on this, and we are going to add some style, which is going to be a button primary. And finally, we are going to take the full size of this using button block. So if we check this, we should be able to refresh here. Of course, there is a little issue here. Let's remove this because probably I made a mistake here. And of course, yes, this should be in a different row. So let's close the row here. We need the form at this level, and of course we don't need this tag. So this should be looking good now. And let's work with the column with the list of users. So there we are going to have a paragraph with a strong element inside to get it in bold, saying online now. And this is going to be an unordered list as well. And inside we are going to have, for example, the name of the users. So let's add some components to this. We are going to have an ID, which is going to be users. Once again, we are going to have a class and the styles. So the style is going to be the same height, which is going to be 45 horizontal elements from the viewport. And in the classes, we are going to add, well, we don't need a style for this list. So list on styled. Then we have overflow auto. And finally, this is going to be text info to show this in a different color. So if everything is okay now, we should be able to go back here, refresh, and there we have. We have on the left the list of messages. We can send some messages here after implementing, of course, the logic on the JavaScript, etc. And on the right, we have the list of users that are completely online. Of course, this is just a static view. We don't have any dynamic here. And this is what we are going to do during the following classes to bring some life to this chat. So, see you there. Okay, great. So, during this class, we are going to introduce the last way to use real-time connections, and this is going to be through a presence channel. And in fact, we are going to see the best example for this, and results that you might be wondering how we are going to handle the list of users that are currently connected to the chat. And probably there are several ways to do it, but the best way to know that is, well, checking the current persons, the current clients, the current users connected to that chat socket. And how can we know that? Well, we can use our presence channels to determine who is joined to a channel, and in fact, who is leaving and who is joining in any moment a presence channel. So let's introduce that, because we are going to need basically some JavaScript in our views and an authentication logic. We are not going to need events this time. So let's see that. Let's go to our resources, views, chat, show.blade.php, and in the scripts part, we are going to start using Laravel Echo, of course. So as we are going to interact with the user's list of elements, we are going to create a constant with the user's element, obtaining that from the ID on the document. And this ID is, remember, users. You can check that here on the list of users that we have on the right of our view. So once we have this constant, we can use label echo, and we are going to introduce a new method, which is join. Join receives the name of the presence channel that we are using. So that means this must be a presence channel to get this working. And when using a presence channel, we have three possible methods that we can use. Here, joining, and leaving. Additionally, we can of course chain usages of the list and the regular method that we use, but this is not the time here, so we are going to start with those. Let's just start first with the here element, and the here element, the here method, is executed every time that the user connects for the first time to this channel. So if you refresh the web page, if you go to that URL, you are joining at that moment the channel, so you are going to probably obtain the list of users to build on real time the list of users that are connected there. So we are receiving those users, and we are going to have an action there. So what is going to be the action? Well, we are going to insert the list of elements, basically the list of users here. Basically the same as we did from the users one. So if we check here on show all, you can see that we are inserting elements on the users list here. So we have again a users list, but this time is the list of users connected to the chat. So we are going to do that. Well, we just need to paste it here and make the adaptation. So we already have the users element, which is good. We can use that there. But this time we can use that into a for each. In fact, in the show all view, we have a for each as well. So let's copy the for each completely, the one that we have here, and let's replace it here. So this time the for each goes for the users. This is the list of users connected to this channel. Then we have the user, every one of those users, the index. So we are inserting an element here, establishing an ID for this user, the inner text is the username, and then we are adding that. So if we go and try to refresh, we are going to have a surprise. If you inspect the code and refresh, you can see how we are getting a forbidden response because, well, we need to define first the authentication logic for this presence channel, and very important, we need to define which information from every user we want to expose. So in fact, the presence channels are basically like private channels with the capability to additionally determine which information you want or you need to share with any specific element. So let's go to root channel.php and we are going to add a new one. We are going to use the chat channel, which is a presence channel. We'll receive the user. So we need a condition. If the user is different from null, that means that we have an authenticated user. And in that case, so we are going to return only the ID of the user that we have authenticated, and the name. Of course, you can share any other information that you may need, but in this case, we are just going to identify the user and to show the name of the user into the chat. Now, if this method, if this function doesn't return any value or returns false, so it is going to fail the authentication. This should be user name, of course. So if we go back, we can refresh, and there you can see how we have test1, test2, and test2 again, because this one was added on real time. So let's remove the first ones because we don't need the static elements now. And at this moment, we only have the test2 connected to our chat. Now, let's talk about the other elements, which are leaving and joining. So those elements receive only the user that is joining or that is leaving. So this is receiving this user, and this time we are going to do different things. If a user is joining, so we are going to insert the element. Basically the same thing that we have here. So we create the element, we set the attribute from this specific user, and we append that to the list. But then, if the user is leaving, so we need to remove that element from the list, basically as we did in the show all as well. So if you check here, in the user deleted, as we have for the list of users from the API, we can do basically the same. So we can create a constant with the element obtained down from the ID and remove it from the list. Of course, this time we are not getting the user from the event, but we are receiving the user directly. So if everything is okay, we should be able to go back here, refresh, and we can even create a new session for the chat into incognito mode. So let's go there. Let's start the session with test 1, for example. And once we are there, you can see how automatically the list of users is managed by this real-time application, by the presence channel. Of course, if one of the users leaves, so the list is going to be automatically managed. Take into account that we are not closing session necessarily. We are just leaving the channel. We are changing the view. We are changing the page. So that means that we are leaving the chat and we are not anymore listening to that channel. So you can see here, once the user is back, we are getting the full list of users connected, and this is being managed on real time from any side of the user. So congratulations, you already are using private channel, public channel, and presence channel in the best way, because you are exposing several alternatives for this, for reacting, for joining, leaving, and connecting to the channel on real time. Let's see you in the following classes now how to manage on real time the sending of messages. See you there. Okay, so this is going very good, and we currently have a chat working, let's say half and half. We need now to synchronize the messages between users on real time as well. And for that, we need to broadcast the message that one user sends. So this is the scenario. A user writes something here, send it, and some way, as we are going to see in the following class, this goes to Laravel, and Laravel takes the message from that specific user and broadcast this to the other user. So during this class, we are going to create that specific event that is going to take the current user and the message that is going to be sent. So let's go there. We are going to duplicate one existing event from one of the hub. For example, this one that is currently using the user definition. So let's go to duplicate this. And we are going to call that message sent. Let's put it here. And then, well, we have the user, which is the one that sends that message, and then we have the message as well. So that way we know who sent the message. Basically, we need especially the name of the user to identify it when sending the message, and the message that the user wants to share. So it means that we need this here as well in the constructor, and we need to assign this in the attributes. Once it is here, so we need to broadcast this in a specific channel. So this time we are going to use the chat channel, but this is not a public channel. This is a presence channel. So we need to import the definition directly from Illuminate Broadcasting Presence Channel. You can see this here. And the name of the channel is of course chat, because we need to be consistent with this that we have. In our view, remember, we are specifying on resources views chat. We have there that we are using chat, and additionally, we have that in our routes, we have specified there in the channels that this is chat as well. So remember, everything needs to be very consistent. Now, in the broadcast on, we are going to debug additionally the user and the message. So let's do something like this. This username, we have this, and then we are going to put there the message. So after this, we have completely created our event, and the only thing that we have to do, and we are going to do that in the following class, is to dispatch or basically broadcast on real time this event once we receive the message. But we need to create the components to, well, receive that message, broadcast that, and especially to receive the message from the frontend and send it to Laravel. That is a matter from the next class, so let's see how to do that there. At this point, we have the capability to broadcast on real time the message and specifically the user that sends that message. That is very good, but how we are going to do that? Well, the logic is basically this. The user writes the message here, so then we capture this message after the user clicks on send or just press enter, make a request to a Laravel element, And after that request, we identify the user, we obtain the message, validate that we received the message, and dispatch or basically broadcast the event with that user and that message should be received by the other users later. So during this class, we are going to do that. We are going to send that request and we are going to implement the action that receives the message, validates the message, and broadcasts this message. So let's just start first creating the route for that, because we need a route where the user can send the request, or basically our application can send the request with the message correspondingly authenticated by a user. So let's go to routes, web.php. There we are going to duplicate this. This is going to be paused to get the message into the body of this. We are going to call this route chat message. And this is going to be as well in the chat controller, but now the action is going to be message received. Then this is going to be chat.message. So we just need to go and create this action. So let's go to our controller in app, HTTP, controllers, and there we have the chat controller. So we need to create this new one, public function message received. And as we are receiving information from the request and we need to validate this, so we need to inject the request here to get access to this. So we need the request instance. Be sure to import the definition directly from Illuminate HTTP request. You can see this here. And now, once we have this, so we can first create the rules to validate this request. In fact, we are going to have only one rule in this case. So this is going to be for the message, and basically the message is completely required. Once we have this, so we can validate the request using that specific rules. Now, if the validation fails, it means we don't receive a message, so Laravel is going to take care and return an error response saying that we need the message. But if everything is okay, it means we received correspondingly the message, so we can now broadcast that. Remember, we are going to create an instance of the event that we recently created, which is message sent. And message sent needs to import its definition coming from app events and receives basically the message and the user. First, the user, and the user is the one that is authenticated, basically the author of this message. So that can be obtained as well from the request using the user method from this specific instance. And then the message is going to come from the request as well, and obtaining the message from the body of that request. Then, just optionally, we can return a response, probably a JSON response, a success one, sending that the message has been broadcasted. So with this, we have the action that we need to call, basically the route that we need to call, using the post method from our view after receiving the message and sending that. So if we go to our view, we can go there. Let's add a new script to keep this a little separated. And for this, we are going to need to use the message element and the send element. So let's copy this just to take it as a reference. This is going to be message. From this, we are going to, obtain the message itself, and the send element is going to be used for the button. So once the user clicks on send or basically press enter to actionate this action, we are going to send the form. So in the send element, we are going to add an event listener. So when this is clicked, we are going to start a specific action receiving the event of the click itself. And then what we are going to do is first prevent the form to be sent using prevent default. And after that, we are going to use Axios to send a post request to the route that we just created, which is chat/message, sending a body which is going to obtain the message itself. So this is going to be message, and the message is going to come from the message element that we have here. Let's obtain the value, and that's all. Let's close this line here. Let's fix some syntax here. Of course, this should be an arrow. And once we are here, after the request, we are just going to use the message element again, and we are going to set the value to empty to allow to the user to send a new message again. So if everything is okay, we should be able to go here. Let's do refresh, open the console just in case. It looks like I have a little issue. Let's verify. The problem is with the arrow, and of course this is a second parameter. We need to be sure of the coloring here. This should be window. It looks like I'm making a lot of mistakes here. And of course here I'm missing to close the parentheses of this original function here. So please be careful with that. I'm making a lot of mistakes here. But once it is ready, so let's just send a message. Testing. But it looks like we are getting an internal error message from our endpoint. So it's saying call to undefined function response because, well, there I made a mistake of the typing here. So let's go to chat controller. This is response, of course. And then let's try testing this again. Seems that it is working fine. So let's verify now in our log on storage logs, level.log. At the bottom, we should have the test2, which is the name of the user, and the message which is checking. So that means that we execute the message sent, added this to the log. We can remove that now, and we are sending that in the presence channel correspondingly. Now we need to go and listen to that event of the message sent and broadcast that to the other users that are connected. This is in fact already broadcasted, but now we need to add that to the list of messages that we have. So see you in the following class to verify how to do that. So yes, you're almost there. We are just creating the final step to this. And basically at this point we are receiving the message from the user. We are broadcasting that message to all the users connected to the presence channel of the chat. But now we need to go to the JavaScript and listen to that specific event of the message sent and show that message to all the users. Because we are receiving that, but well, we need to show that to the user to make it real. So for that, of course, we need to go to our view, and there we need to add a new script. So let's go to resources, views, chat, and in the show, well, we are going to verify that we can chain a new method here. We have here, we have joining, we have leaving, and as I showed you in a previous class, we can still chaining a call to the listen method. So as usual, the listen method is going to receive the name of the event that we are listening, which is message sent. Then this is going to use an action, receiving the event, and then we can, well, obtain that message and show it to the user. So basically what we have to do is to create an element inside, not on the list of users, but on the list of messages. So we are creating the element is going to be a list item. Very good. Then we don't need an ID for this message, so we don't need that line. Then we are inner texting this username, but now, of course, we don't have the username. We have the message, so we need to use event.message. And finally, we just need to append that element not to the user's element, but to the message element. Now, I know this element is not defined, so well, we just need to define that in the top of this portion of the script. So let's duplicate this. This is, of course, messages element, and the same here, because we have a messages element by ID, as you can see this here. If everything is okay, we should be able to go back here, refresh, and we can do the same in the incognito session. Be sure to refresh again, and let's verify. Hello, and there you have. We have the message, but of course, we additionally need the name of the user, and we can remove those temporal elements from the view. So let's go to remove these ones. And now let's to add the name of the user to this. Remember that we are receiving on the event not only the message, but the name of the user as well. Basically the information for that user. So we can do something like this. We obtain the user from the event. Then from this user we obtain the name. Then we add the string. with the colon, and finally we have the message. Let's do refresh now once again. Let's do send this, hello. There you have test 2, say hello, and the same here. This is test 2 and this is test 1. So, hi there. And there you have. We have a perfectly functional chat here after fixing some little details, and of course, this is the dynamic again. Once the user types something here, my message for example, so it press enter or clicks on send, and this trigger the function that is going to send a request to our Laravel application with the message itself. Then we receive that message directly into our controller in app HTTP controllers chat controller. And once we receive the message, so we broadcast that message through the event, identifying the user and the message itself. So once the message is sent using this event, we receive that back again, but not only for the user that sent it. We are getting that back on real time and broadcasted for all the users that are connected to our chat. Those users or many other users that you may have connected there. Congratulations! At this point you have a very functional chat working, of course, on real time. And in the following section we are going to add a very interesting feature to this to allow communication between two only users. So let's imagine that you have 3, 4, 5 users and you want to send a specific event from the user 1 to the user 2, and user 3, 4, and 5 are not going to take care of that because they are not allowed. This is basically a private communication only between two different points. Let's see how to do that in the following section. See you there.